Siddhartha, a young man from a wealthy family, finds himself increasingly dissatisfied with his life of luxury. He spends his days indulging in fine foods, music, and companionship, yet feels a gnawing emptiness. One evening during a lavish feast, he looks around at his laughing friends and family, wondering why their joy seems so alien to him. He excuses himself and wanders into the palace gardens, gazing at the stars and questioning the purpose of his existence. Siddhartha confides in his childhood friend Devadatta about his growing unease. Devadatta, concerned for his friend, suggests they visit the local marketplace to lift Siddhartha's spirits. There, amidst the bustling stalls and colorful wares, Siddhartha encounters an old beggar named Channa. The stark contrast between Channa's apparent contentment and Siddhartha's inner turmoil intrigues him. He engages Channa in conversation, learning that the old man was once a wealthy merchant who gave up everything in search of true happiness. Haunted by his encounter with Channa, Siddhartha begins to question the nature of happiness. He starts to notice the suffering around him: servants toiling endlessly, animals being slaughtered for feasts, and the sick and elderly hidden away from sight. One day, while riding through the city, he witnesses a group of ascetics practicing severe austerities. Their gaunt figures and intense focus captivate him, and he wonders if they have found the key to true contentment. Siddhartha's father, King Suddhodana, notices his son's growing distraction and arranges a meeting. The king reminds Siddhartha of his duties as a prince and future ruler, emphasizing the importance of maintaining the family lineage and protecting their kingdom. He presents Siddhartha with a beautiful young woman, Yashodhara, as a potential bride. Siddhartha feels torn between his familial obligations and his deepening spiritual quest. Despite his inner turmoil, Siddhartha agrees to marry Yashodhara. The wedding is a grand affair, with nobles from neighboring kingdoms in attendance. As Siddhartha goes through the elaborate rituals, he feels increasingly disconnected from the celebrations around him. That night, lying awake next to his sleeping bride, he realizes that this new role has only added to his sense of confinement. He silently vows to find a way to break free from the cycle of worldly pleasures that seem to trap everyone around him. Months pass, and Siddhartha tries to immerse himself in his princely duties. He attends council meetings, settles disputes among citizens, and even leads a successful diplomatic mission to a neighboring kingdom. Yet, each accomplishment feels hollow. One evening, he overhears two servants discussing a wandering holy man who has set up camp near the city gates. Siddhartha is intrigued but hesitates to seek out the holy man, fearing the disappointment it would cause his father and new wife. Unable to resist his curiosity, Siddhartha disguises himself as a commoner and sneaks out to meet the holy man, Asita. He finds Asita meditating under a banyan tree, surrounded by a small group of disciples. Siddhartha is struck by the peace radiating from Asita's weathered face. When Asita opens his eyes, he immediately sees through Siddhartha's disguise and addresses him as young prince. Asita shares a parable about a man who mistakes a rope for a snake in the dark, illustrating how our perceptions can lead to unnecessary suffering. Siddhartha returns to visit Asita several times, each encounter leaving him with new insights and more questions. During one visit, Asita tells the story of the leper in the forest, explaining how what seems like pleasure to the afflicted is actually a source of pain to the healthy. This parable deeply resonates with Siddhartha, who begins to see his life of luxury in a new light. However, as Asita prepares to leave the city, Siddhartha feels a sense of panic, unsure if he's ready to fully embrace the path of renunciation. Torn between his newfound understanding and his worldly responsibilities, Siddhartha makes a fateful decision. Late one night, after a final look at his sleeping wife and newborn son, he quietly leaves the palace. With only his loyal charioteer Channa for company, Siddhartha rides to the edge of the forest. There, he cuts off his long hair, exchanges his fine clothes for simple robes, and sends Channa back with his possessions. As dawn breaks, Siddhartha takes his first steps into the forest as a wandering ascetic. Siddhartha's first days in the forest are challenging. Accustomed to a life of comfort, he struggles with hunger, harsh weather, and the constant threat of wild animals. He encounters a group of forest dwellers who teach him basic survival skills. Among them is an elderly woman named Sujata, who shares her own story of leaving behind a life of wealth in search of truth. Siddhartha begins to adapt to his new life, finding an unexpected sense of freedom in his hardships. Siddhartha joins a group of ascetics, led by the renowned teacher Uddaka Ramapuda. He throws himself into their austere practices, engaging in extreme fasting and meditation. After months of self-denial, Siddhartha's body becomes emaciated and he grows weak. During a particularly intense meditation session, he nearly loses consciousness. A young ascetic named Kondana helps him recover, questioning whether such extreme measures are truly the path to enlightenment. Realizing that neither a life of indulgence nor extreme asceticism leads to true understanding, Siddhartha leaves the ascetic group. He wanders alone, contemplating the nature of suffering and happiness. One day he comes across a group of musicians traveling between villages. As he listens to them discuss how to tune their instruments, neither too tight nor too loose, Siddhartha has a revelation about the importance of balance. This insight becomes the foundation of his developing philosophy of the middle way. Siddhartha arrives at a serene spot near the village of Bodh Gaya. Sensing the significance of this place, he sits beneath a large fig tree, vowing not to rise until he has found the truth he seeks. As he meditates, he is assailed by doubts and temptations, manifesting as the demon Mara. Mara sends visions of luxury, power, and his family back at the palace, but Siddhartha remains steadfast in his meditation. As Siddhartha deepens his meditation, he begins to unravel the nature of suffering. He sees how his own desires and attachments have led to his discontent. In a series of vivid insights, he recalls his past lives and understands the cycle of rebirth. The night wears on, and Siddhartha's understanding grows. He sees how all beings are interconnected and how compassion is the key to breaking the cycle of suffering. As the morning star rises, Siddhartha's mind clears completely. He understands the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. In this moment, he becomes the Buddha, the awakened one. The world around him seems to rejoice in his enlightenment, with flowers blooming out of season and a gentle rain falling. Siddhartha, now the Buddha, remains seated in blissful meditation, fully absorbing the profound truths he has realized. For several weeks, the Buddha remains near the Bodhi tree, contemplating the profound nature of his realization. He questions whether others will be able to understand these deep truths. The god Brahma appears to him, urging him to teach for the benefit of all beings. After careful consideration, the Buddha agrees, deciding to seek out his former companions to share his newfound wisdom. Chapter 17, The First Sermon. The Buddha travels to Sarnath, where he finds his 5 former ascetic companions. Initially skeptical, they are soon won over by the Buddha's profound presence and wisdom. In the deer park, the Buddha delivers his first formal teaching, expounding on the Four Noble Truths and the Middle Way. Kondana, who had once helped Siddhartha during his ascetic phase, becomes the first to fully understand and is ordained as the first Buddhist monk. Word of the Buddha's teachings spreads, and people from all walks of life come to hear him speak. He establishes a community of monks and nuns, teaching them the importance of compassion, mindfulness, and the middle way between indulgence and asceticism. Among his new disciples is Ananda, who becomes his personal attendant and closest confidant. The Buddha begins to send his disciples out to spread the Dharma, instructing them to teach for the benefit of all beings. After several years of teaching, the Buddha returns to his hometown of Kapilavastu. His father, King Suddhodana, is initially angry, but eventually becomes a devoted follower. The Buddha's son, Rahula, now a young boy, joins the monastic community. This causes conflict with the Buddha's cousin Devadatta, who believes that the Sangha should be run more strictly. The Buddha must navigate these personal and political challenges while staying true to his teachings. As the Buddha's following grows, so do the challenges. Devadatta's jealousy leads him to attempt to assassinate the Buddha multiple times. Each attempt fails, and the Buddha responds with compassion, using these incidents as teachings on the nature of hatred and forgiveness. During a large gathering of monks and laypeople, the Buddha shares the parable of the leper, which he first heard from Asita years ago. He expands on the story, drawing parallels between the leper's misguided search for comfort and the way most people seek happiness through sensual pleasures. This teaching has a profound impact on many in the audience. As the Buddha ages, he continues to travel and teach. During his final journey, he falls ill but insists on continuing to the town of Kushinagar. Along the way, he encounters various individuals, offering each of them personalized teachings. In Kushinagar, lying between 2 sal trees, he gives his final instructions to his disciples, emphasizing the impermanence of all things and the importance of diligent practice. Surrounded by his disciples, the Buddha enters his final meditation. As he passes into parinirvana, a great earthquake shakes the land, and his followers are filled with grief. Ananda, despite his sorrow, remembers the Buddha's teachings on impermanence and helps organize the funeral rites. The Buddha's body is cremated and his relics are divided among kingdoms, ensuring that his physical presence will continue to inspire devotion.